Hello and welcome to the Truck System Technologies instructional video for the TPMS 510 RV system. And what we're going to do is show you how to set up the system, show you the components that come with the system, and give you an overall view of some tips and tricks to use with the 510 system. Now, the 510 system has just one type of sensor as opposed to the 507 system. This sensor basically is a sensor that's a cap. It goes onto the valve stem. It has a 3 to 4 year battery life on it. And this sensor also has a 4-digit code on the outside of the sensor that we're going to use later on in the video to code it into the monitor. So you get a sensor with it. Depending on how many sensors you order, you could start with 2 sensors and go all the way up to 22 sensors. So you order the kit according to what you need as far as how many tires you have. So that's the sensor. That also, of course, comes with a monitor. The monitor is on right now. The monitor has 4 buttons across the bottom of it. It's got a mode, plus, negative, and also has a set button. And we'll show you more about that later on in the video. But that's what the monitor looks like, and it actually is a triangular monitor. So if you have this monitor, you know that you have a 510 system. Other components that come with it is there are 2 forms of power that you can hook up to power up the monitor to charge it. There is a lithium-ion battery in the monitor. So you get a hardwire kit that also has an inline fuse to protect it. This you can hook into your ignition on your vehicle, and when you turn the ignition on, the monitor will come on. We also have a cigarette lighter type plug-in to charge the battery up. You can put it in while you're driving, or you can charge it up and then run it on battery power if you're doing like a long weekend of camping, or if you're in using your boat for the weekend. The other thing we have as part of the system is to hold the mount, to mount the monitor onto the front dash of your unit. There are 2 different clips that actually go into the vents of your AC unit. So you can clip it in, and that holds the monitor. If you don't want to do that, we also have a Velcro pad that comes with it. Part of the pad will go attached to the bottom of the monitor, and then the other part is actually attached to your dash, and then you can put the monitor on, stick it on with the Velcro, and remove it if you need to. That's the other mount that we have. Other things that come with this system is we give you some gaskets. These gaskets actually go in to the bottom where the sensor will screw on to the valve stem, and these are to prevent it from leaking. So if you have a bad gasket, we give you some extra units. We also give you the 2 wrenches, and you need these wrenches because these sensors have an anti-theft device, and the anti-theft device is basically that once you get it onto the valve stem, this will spin around and you cannot take the sensor off unless you have one of these wrenches, and the wrench goes around the unit like this. As part of the kit, you also get a long antenna, and this is a kind of a dipole antenna that you could put on in place of this stubby antenna if you want to get a little bit more range out of it. If you're not using a repeater, and we're going to tell you about repeaters later on, you can actually attach this antenna to the same position where the stubby antenna is, and that will give you more gain from the sensors. And this is used especially if you have a longer rig and you may be having some issues with the tires dropping out, something like that. This will actually amplify the signal coming back into the monitor and will help that issue. So that is basically the entire kit that comes with the 510 system, and we're going to show you how to set it up next. This is the 510 monitor, of course, and we're going to show you now how to program it. And if you'll notice on the monitor, you can possibly see that there is 1 tire that's blinking. Typically this throws people off because they said, well, I haven't really set up anything on the monitor yet there's a tire there blinking. Well, that tire is actually from the factory. They test the monitor, and they usually use that first tire position, the right position on the front, to test the monitor. And when they do that, sometimes they forget to take it off. So this monitor was like that. I decided to leave it like that so I could show you how to remove that. Or if you're going to use that tire position, you can actually code right over that tire position. Just keep in mind when you're programming these that all Fs across the screen, that's the code. That means that that tire position will not show up on the monitor. If you keep that in mind, you'll know that if you want to get rid of a tire, you have to just make sure that the readout is set to all Fs. We have all the positions as F, so now if I hold down the set button, it will show you the main screen, and that tire position is now gone, as you can see. So that's how you get rid of a tire position you don't want. You set it to all Fs, and the position will be gone when you get out of that programming screen. So I'm going to get back into the programming screen now, and I'm going to show you how to program one of the sensors in. Okay, so now we're still on that same tire that I just deleted. So now I'm going to use that for this sensor. And I'm going to set up this sensor position as if I had, say, a motorhome with that front position. It could be a trailer, it could be a boat trailer, it could be a fifth wheel. So I'm going to use that position, and this sensor, the 4-digit code is 5901. So that's what I have to set up here, 5901. So using the plus button, I'm going to go to 5 for the first digit, like so. That's 5. I'm going to hit the mode button. It's going to the second digit. I'm going to bring that to 9 by hitting the plus button. You could use the negative button as well, but for me, going with the plus in this particular case is a little bit easier. I'm going to hit the mode button again, and then on the third position, we're going to put a 0 in. And so using the plus, I'm going to hit it once, and F goes to a 0. And now we're going to the fourth position, and the fourth position on this particular sensor is a 1. So I'm going to hit the plus button twice. It becomes a 1, and that is the code I need. Each of the sensors has a unique 4-digit code, and that's what tells the monitor to grab the data from that particular sensor. So you see how that's done. Now I'm going to take the set button. I'm going to hold the set button in to save that. It'll beep. And now it goes back to your main screen. As you can see, there is another wheel position that I set up, which is the code 5901. So this particular sensor will have to go on that position on the, say it's a motorhome. On the motorhome would be the front right tire. Now that I have the first sensor done, and I really did not have to come out of the programming mode if I had additional sensors to program, so I'm going to go back into the programming mode by holding the set button down. It beeps, and you'll see that that first tire position is blinking. Now, to move on to the next tire position you want to program, you just push and release the set button. You do not hold it. Okay, so I'm pushing and releasing, and it moves on to the next tire position. And then I would program that, because you see the first digit is blinking. I would put the 4-digit code in there. Once I'm done with that, and of course you use the mode to switch from digit to digit, I would just hit the set button again, release it, and go to the next position. And I would continue around like that, just hitting the set button, setting up your next position that you need to set up, and then continue around like that. After you do that, as I mentioned, you have to hold the set button down until it beeps to save it. Now we're going to go into the parameter setting, and we're going to set the high pressure and the low pressure alarms. We're also going to look at the temperature alarm. So, in order to get into that parameter, you have to hold down the mode button until it beeps, M-O-D-E, until it beeps. There it has just beeped, and you'll see the first thing is P.S.I. Now you're going to just push and release the mode button. So if I push it again, if you see an F for Fahrenheit, you're good. If you see a C for Celsius, you want to press your plus button, and that will bring it from C to F for Fahrenheit. If you're in Canada, you'll probably want to keep it at centigrade or Celsius, which is the C. Now, you're going to just push and release the mode button for the following procedure. So, push it again. You should see your front axle blinking. Normally, you'll set your high pressure alarm for 20% above your normal tire pressure. You'll set it for 10% for the low pressure alarm below your normal tire pressure. If you're in states that are warmer or during the summer, you might want to change to 25% above your normal tire pressure for the high. So in that regard, I'm going to use my minus button since this starts at 175, and I'm going to bring this down to 120. Since I'm starting out with 100 pounds in my tire, that would be 20% above. It's overshot a little bit there. Okay, so I'm at 120. So that's my high pressure alarm. That is not my pressure in the tire. My pressure in the tire is 100 pounds. So that's why I'm going to 120, 20% above. So I'm going to also now hit the mode button. We're going to go to the low pressure next. And the low pressure is going to be 90. So I'm going to set it from 100 down to 90, which is at right now. So that front axle is now complete. The high pressure is set to 120. The low pressure alarm is set to 90. Now, in order to move on to the next, we're going to hit mode again. You see it's going to the next axle. So if that axle is the same as far as your normal pressure of 100, you would do the same thing. You would set it to 120 using the minus button coming down from 175, which is the default. Go to 120, you'll hit the mode button to go to the low pressure alarm, and you'll set that to 90. You'll continue doing that throughout all the tires, all the axles that you need to do that with your particular rig. And then when you're done, you'll just quickly push and release the set button. That will save all those settings. Very important, you must push and release the set button to save the parameters that you've set up. Now I'm on the last axle of the tractor trailer section, and this is set up so that it can be used with a truck or an RV or a boat trailer. So I'm on that last section at this point, and I have to mention that if you have pressure in your tires that is lower than 100, you have to set up your low pressure first. And so in this case, on that last axle, I'm going to hit the mode button, and I'd go to my low setting first, and I'm going to bump that down because let's say we have, let's say 80 pounds in our tire as a normal operating range. So I'm going to bring that down to 72 first, like that. Okay, because the low pressure default is at 100 and you can't go below 100, so you have to set the low pressure first. So then you have to hit the mode button and come all the way around back to that axle in order to set the high pressure. So now I'm back to that same axle with the high pressure, and I will set that down to 98 because in this instance, at setting it at 80 as your normal pressure, 98 would be your 20% above. And it takes a little bit of clicking. Unfortunately, you cannot hold the buttons down. You have to click them, push and release. And now I'm at 98, so now it's set properly. So now if I hit the mode button again, you'll see the low pressure that we just set up, and that should be correct. And so that's how you set it up if your normal tire pressure is below 100. So I'm now going to click on the mode button, and I'm going to show you what happens on the trailer section. Now with the trailer section, all the tires are blinking. With the trailer, you could set up all your tires, your high pressure and your low pressure, as one unit for all your trailer tires. So that makes it kind of quick and easy to do. So if you do have something you're towing, like a trailer or a car behind a motorhome or a boat trailer, you could set this up at one time for your high pressure and low pressure alarms. Now, that's the high first, low second. The last thing you're going to see in this particular instance, in the parameter setting, is your temperature. The temperature default is 158 degrees. Normally, you would leave it at 158 degrees unless you have a weird circumstance or an odd circumstance where you need to have it set up higher. But typically, you don't want to set that up higher because between 170 and 200, usually a tire will start to fail and will blow. So 158 is a very early warning system. That's why we say leave it there. That's basically the standard for us. When you're done with that, you can hit the button again. You'll notice it goes around, back around to P.S.I. And then you hit the set button, push and release, so you can save all those parameters, and now everything is set up in your monitor. So now that we've gone through the programming, I want to tell you a little bit about what happens if you do have a tire issue. With this particular monitor, there's icons across the bottom that will indicate whether it's a high pressure problem, a low pressure problem, or a temperature problem. When you do have an issue, the tire icon that's blinking, it actually goes in a cycle throughout the monitor, and it keeps cycling. If it does have a problem, it'll jump to the tire that has the problem, and then it will indicate if it's a high pressure, low pressure, or if it's a temperature issue. And you'll know that because the little light will blink at the bottom corner here of the monitor. You'll also see on the display itself, which will read pressure and temperature, that will blink, and then you'll get an audible alarm telling you that there is an issue with one of the tires. And the one that actually shows you the blinking image of the pressure and the temperature, that's the tire that has the problem. And that will be blinking, the tire will be blinking, and the little red light will be blinking all at the same time. And you'll have a bunch of icons at the bottom that will show you those indications. So that's how you can tell that there's a problem. We suggest, if that does happen, that you try to find a spot to pull over and check that particular tire to see what's going on with it. Also, there's a battery indicator on this side, on the lower right side of the monitor. That battery indicator is for the monitor. If that battery indicator goes down to 1 bar, we suggest you charge it up, put it on the charger and get it going. There's also a battery indicator on the lower left side. And on the lower left side, that indicator is for the sensor itself. So if you see the battery indicator blinking and a tire blinking, that will mean that that particular sensor, the battery is starting to go on it, and you'll have to get the sensor replaced. The 510 sensors do not have replaceable batteries in them. You could send them back to TST and get that sensor replaced. Give us a call first and tell us that you have a sensor that you think the battery is bad. We'll do a little troubleshooting with it to make sure it is the battery, and then we'll have you send it back in to us. Now let's talk about the 510 repeater. The repeater is used to strengthen the signal or amplify the signal from the sensors forward to the monitor. The reason you might need a repeater is if you have a rig that's over 34 foot in length. The repeater is mounted usually towards the rear of a motorhome. It's mounted towards the front storage area of a fifth wheel, and on an Airstream trailer, usually in the front, there's like a battery box in the front, and it can be mounted in there. It is waterproof and weatherproof, so you can mount it outside or you can mount it inside. Basically what it does is it plugs into a 12-volt source, and when I say it plugs in, it's got bare wires. You have to actually wire it into a 12-volt plus and minus circuit. You can do that right directly to the battery. You can, it does not come with a switch, so if you do it into the battery and you want to put a switch in line, you could put a switch in on one of the legs, either the plus or the minus, to switch it on and off if you'd like. It only draws milliamps, so it draws very little power. When this is operational, this little red dot in the center, or this little dot in the center will turn red, and you'll know that it's operational. If you are experiencing some tire dropout with your rig and you feel you need a repeater, you can give us a call at TST at 770-889-9102 and talk to us about it. or you can order one online at tsttruck.com, tsttruck.com. One of the tips I'd like to give you on the 510 system is when you're setting up the number, since you have to do it manually, the 6 and the B are very similar, as you can see on the screen. So you'd be sure, if your sensor says it's a B, that you have just the straight line going up. If it's a 6, you've got that little top to the unit. And you could tell this, if you want, by using the plus or minus button, just going one digit up or down. If it's a B, you should see a C, or you should see an A when you go up or down. And if it's a 6, you should see a 5 or a 7 when you go up and down. Then you'll know for sure that it is a B or it is a 6. Another tip for you with the 510 sensor is that you want to make sure that it's screwed on snugly but not too tight, because you don't want to destroy the sensor. But if you have low readings, low pressure readings, and you know that you've checked the tire and the readings are, say, 80 and it's reading like 40 on the sensor, you might want to unscrew the valve core that's within your valve stem. Sometimes the sensor does not push that little plunger in the valve core down far enough. So if you bring that valve core out with a valve core tool, about a half a turn, and then put your sensor back on, you could probably get more air pressure into the sensor, and that will give you a correct reading. So give that a try. Another tip to reset the sensor, if you're not getting any reading for pressure or temperature on your monitor, is to unscrew it from your valve stem, wait about 5 to 10 seconds, and then screw it back onto the valve stem again. This should reset it because you're taking pressure away from the sensor and then giving it pressure again. See if that will work. Give it about 5 to 10 minutes and allow it to regain the data from that particular sensor, and see if that will reset it and give you your pressure and temperature. For marine applications with our 510 sensors, you do screw them on to the valve stem as normal on your boat trailer, and you can then submerge them in water. These sensors are actually sealed, so they will not be affected by the water as long as they're not left in the water too long. 5-10 minutes, not a problem. And then when you bring them out, you don't have to take them off your valve stem to dry them out or anything. The 510 sensor will work perfectly with your boat trailer. Another troubleshooting tip, if your 510 sensor is not reading on that particular tire position, you can unscrew it off that tire position and go and put the sensor on a different valve stem, possibly on your car, on your truck, even on a bicycle. Keep in mind that it's going to be reading in the same position on your monitor that it did originally, but this would verify if the sensor is working, if the readings come up, the sensor is working, or and that means that your valve stem or valve core has got an issue, or if it's not reading on either your valve stem that you originally put it on or the new valve stem, then you may have some kind of a sensor issue, and please give us a call at TST if that is the case. We want to thank you for purchasing our 510 system for your application. If you need any help with programming, or if you need any help with troubleshooting, give us a call at 770-889-9102. You can also visit our website for tips and videos
And that website address is www.tsttruck.com. That's TSTTRUCK.com.